welcome to another episode of Halfway Human. We have two very special guests in a studio today. They've written a book called Advocating for Educational Change. We have Dr. Moreno, I got it right, and we have Dr. Scott. I just call you Lawrence because I've known you forever.
Forever.
And they've come very prepared. I'm going to tell you right now, this is the most prepared guest. They both have printouts.
We're educators.
I was like, I'm not even this prepared. Okay, guys? Like, y'all wrote this book.
There's going to be a test right after this.
Oh, no, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. I guess, and I'll open up to both of y'all. I'll kind of, I have y'all on both sides, but I'll let y'all kind of answer these questions back and forth if you want to, or both answer it. But what is the overarching thought of the book for somebody that has not read it or has looked at it? What is the overall concept of this?
Sure. So the overall concept of the book is that discipline should be handled on a spectrum and not just be particular consequences for specific infractions. What I mean by that is we have kids that are engaging in behaviors that are requiring consequences when they don't understand what they've done, why they've done it, who they've harmed, and what they can do to be better about it in the future. And so when we talk about discipline in the book, we really talk about equitable discipline, things that we can do to help students learn how to take accountability for their actions, repair the harm, and restore relationships and community in the spaces that they're in.
So how did you get involved in this, Dr. Scott? How did you get involved? You can have some water if you want.
Yeah, no, actually, Dr. Moreno and I, we've been doing this for a long time, almost 20 years, right? And over 20 years. And we had the pleasure of working together in a DAEP, which is a district alternative education program, essentially alternative school. And again, we got to see the power of giving second chances, right? The power of receiving a second chance. And so many of the students there were there for drug-related offenses, over 80%, maybe a little more. And so what we saw is, we can't give a one-size-fits-all prescription discipline, right? So you're there and you're going to suspend kids or you're going to exclude them or give them some kind of punishment. That's not going to work for everyone. If you're there for a drug-related offense, you need something surgical, right, to address that particular need. And that particular need is addiction. So we brought in, Cicada, right? We brought in Palmer's. We brought in Center for Healthcare Services. We brought, more restorative groups and what would that involve? We'll get into nuances later, but it involved check-ins. It involved, them contributing to a garden and being on a team in which they can see themselves doing something or contributing to something better than themselves. And then they can build self-efficacy, and that self-efficacy basically saying that I can do this, I can be better, I can actually contribute more because I'm a better person, and I'm not just, what this paper says on the suspension note, right? I'm not just what my teacher has said to me when I got there, or I'm not just what my parents have said or didn't say when they didn't show up, or, I'm not just what my brother was when I went to the funeral of him getting shot because he was involved in gang violence, and I'm not just that. So, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where we're giving an opportunity for everyone involved, all stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, administrators, community leaders, policymakers, everyone involved to make sure that we holistically invest into the child and not just the action and the behavior, but the symptoms that cause the behavior.
So am I wrong? It seems like prisons, like jails or prisons, use something similar to this, correct? Is that right?
That is correct. We actually, restorative justice was born from Native American communities and First Peoples, Indigenous nations communities. If individuals had created harm in the community, they would surround them and support them and offer them ways to rejoin their community and their tribes and bring them back into the fold. And so in the 70s, I believe, is when restorative justice kind of took its place in the judicial system. And so they're still using that. They do with victims and offenders in the court system. They absolutely do. And restorative practices is very similar. It's just scaled down to where it's able to be used as a proactive approach with relationship building tools and community building tools before we get to the point where we're rehabilitating people in the judicial system.
And have y'all found, I guess, at the end of the day, what was the result that y'all found? I mean, that's the end goal, is how successful.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because the book talks about the actual research.
So we shouldn't. we shouldn't.
No. Actually, this is the.
I want people to read it.
I would defer to Dr. Moreno. But when we have actual empirical data, longitudinal data, basically data over time to support, once you use this, the independent variable, once you use this as a treatment, you will see the outcome, and you will see that it works. So, Dr. Moreno, you want to talk about actual data that we were able to disaggregate?
Yes. So we did. It was a 3-year study at the Disciplinary Alternative Campus at the DAEP, and we looked at student behavior. And when we first started, there were many expulsions. And so when kids are expelled from the DAEP, they go to the juvenile justice.
Just real quickly, you're saying DEAP? DAEP? Okay, what is that?
Disciplinary Alternative Educational Placement.
Okay.
It's an alternative school
for
kids who have committed an infraction against the student code of conduct and have been deemed too unsafe to be on their traditional campus.
Okay.
So they're sent to the DAEP. Well, when something happens at the DAEP and they're expelled to the Juvenile Justice Academy. So now we have entered into the realm of the judicial system.
Gotcha.
Right? And so what we saw happening was the year before we implemented restorative practices, or the year before they were implemented at that campus, expulsions were very high. We had 37 kids that were expelled out of that DAEP that year. And 3 years later, we had 0 expulsions. Also, our out-of-school suspensions went down significantly. So we saw quite an impact on the behavior with restorative practices and community buildings. We also saw our recidivism, which means when kids come back to the alternative campus or sent back, we saw that decrease as well. So we
7%, like 7% recidivism rate. Yeah.
Wow.
Very low, low. And so we watched this over time. We watched it go down. The amount of referrals that were entered into the system decreased. The amount of kids that were in school suspension decreased. Out of school suspension decreased, and expulsions were gone totally.
Yeah. So I guess a high level question, and I'll go toward you on this, because I know your childhood growing up, you had, and maybe you can kind of give some of your experiences, but
sure.
What inspired you, both can answer this question, to write this book?
I tell people I'm from East Side San Antonio, but not today's East Side, not the $300,000 homes and the coffee shops. I'm talking about what DJ Quick was like. San Antonio's just like Compton, is that East Side. And you can Google DJ Quick. I know a lot of your audience
like, who is that?
They wouldn't know who DJ Quick is. But anyway, in the 90s, I think in the 90s, San Antonio was one of the top drive-by cities in the nation at the time. Crips and Bloods was so bad. And so anyway, I was from an East Side that was, I would say, underdeveloped, and it was, a lot of things were happening. My dad actually sold drugs out of the home. So I was acclimated to a whole drug culture, drug and gang type culture.
Sure.
And so for me, it was seeing that and seeing that was going to be my future.
Yeah.
I got in some trouble. I ended up moving to North Carolina with my mother. And my mother,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had to move away to North Carolina to go to high school. And I think that's what changed my life. I ran into a teacher named Mr. Bago, Mr. Darryl Bago. And from there, I got to see the archetype of success. I got to see a young man that he was like 28, but he was like inspiring. He wrote books. He gave speeches. He was our basketball coach. He was a great writer, speaker. And fast forward about 5 years later, I'm going back to him. So I had that archetype in my head of, okay, if I'm not going to be an attorney, what can I do? Well, then I was like, I can be like Mr. Bago, make a difference just like Mr. Bago was doing. So then fast forward, after I graduated from college, I got to go back to North Carolina and talk to Mr. Bago and basically tell him like, hey, I teach like you, I write books like you, I do speeches like you, I'm a teacher like you, I coach basketball like you, I'm bald like you, I became you, right? I actually named my son Christian after his son Christian. So I think after all of that, again, having grown up in a drug culture, a strong drug culture, I wouldn't say necessarily just gang, but really a strong drug culture, addiction and distribution. And then having some of that, on me,
Sure.
Attempting to distribute, but also dealing with my own addiction issues. That for me crystallized my mission of I have to create other, just like Daryl Bagel was for me, I have to create other Lawrence Scotts.
Sure.
And so that's what the mission is restorative practices allows for, yes, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall forward. You're going to make mistakes. Find a mentor, right? Find another James Chandler, another Dr. Jessica Moreno, Dr. Lawrence Scott. Find a mentor, Amir Samandi, Daryl Bagel. I was homeless at a time. My pastor took me in, Pastor Keith Graham. For a year, took me in, and I got to see again another archetype of what's possible. That's what restorative practices does. It creates a nucleus or a community. It creates a family. It creates a village that allows you to fail, and take onus and responsibility for that failure, right? A responsibility, the ability to respond.
Sure.
Also respond together and let them know you're not going to move forward by yourself. We're going to walk this life out so that you can become the person that you've been destined to be.
Gotcha. And so for you, what was your inspiration? I mean, I don't know you as well, and he can talk for he'll take the whole hour if we let him. He will let.
I thought this was a talk show.
He will take the whole. My editor will be cutting like a crazy person if we let him loose too long. I might just do the volume down on him. Mute him. But so why did you get? How did you get involved in it? I mean, what was the inspiration for you? I guess to do this.
Yep. So I have 16 years in education now, and my calling is to advocate for our children. And that is all I have ever wanted to do, and all I have really tried to do with using my voice and anything that I have and can do to advocate for our children. This book really grew out of the time working in the disciplinary alternative education program, the DAEP.
Don't make me say that again because I screwed it up bad. But I'm learning.
You're doing a great job.
Absolutely.
For 10 years, I worked with kids who had already been removed from their home campuses, and I kept seeing the same pattern, right? Students were being punished, but nobody was developing them. Nobody was helping them move past this mistake that they had made, and they were being labeled and targeted as these bad kids, quote unquote bad kids, these disruptive kids, these defiant kids. These problematic kids. And so really it was born out of a desire to help them move past the label that they had received and help them feel that even though they had made this mistake, they still belonged to the community. They still belonged to their home campus. They still belonged in society with people, regardless of their drug infraction, regardless of the anger management classes that they were being required to take, things like that. And so later when I conducted my doctoral research on restorative practices, I realized what I had experienced wasn't isolated, and it was actually nationwide, honestly. I spent several years as a national trainer for restorative practices. And so it's not just the state of Texas or the city of San Antonio that's having these issues with our kids. It's everywhere. And it's the same problems. And so I felt a responsibility to bridge this kind of research and real world practice and offer educators a framework that holds students accountable while helping them connect to opportunity.
Is there an ethnic group that is targeted in this, or because I asked you this the pre-question?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that. So a lot of our research and to Dr. Moreno's point is, we've done this work. So what separates this is this love of labor of love, is that we've done the work. So we're both administrators. And I was a school counselor. She was a behavioral specialist. And we're teachers and coaches and other capacities as well in schools. What we saw, again, we saw that, and I'll just use me. Here in San Antonio, I was, an administrator over a middle school, and I was disproportionately suspending my black boys. What happened is I had to disaggregate the data. I wasn't looking at the data. And a lot of times, a lot of people, and this is, for a lot of your listeners who aren't in education, a lot of times we don't look at the data to support our decision making. And so what we have done, and I do that as a professor training the next cadre of principals and superintendents is I really have them disaggregate your data, look at your data, and then what does the data tell you? Think critically, all right, examine, and then what will be a viable solution to mitigate some of those issues. So what we saw and what I saw is my Black boys and Hispanic boys, I was suspending them disproportionately. Why? Simple infraction. And then they go to the office, and then something happens on their way to the office, right? They get into a fight, or they go off. They go off on the lady at the front in the office. I mean, it's just something simple that could have been de-escalated a long time ago. Sure. Right? If we built the right relationships, make sure we attract, train, and retain our restorative thinking teachers, not deficit thinking, meaning that those kids are bad, there's nothing we can do, but restorative thinking, like what can we do to build a relationship so we can help these students? So it never gets to that point, right? And so when I looked at the data, I was like, holy crap, like I got to change, because what I'm doing is I'm creating what we call a pipeline of prison. So if I'm suspending him now and I suspend him for 3 days, now think about this, and we've heard this. We've been in education long enough to hear this. Teachers say, I need a break. Okay, you know what? I'm going to suspend him 3 days. I'm going to give Miss Johnson a break. Yeah. So he doesn't have to go to that class for 3 days. Yeah. Well, guess what? When he gets back, he's 3 days behind. Yeah. And if it's something, that's an incremental. School, 3 days huge. Behind. Yeah. So he's going to act out again because he doesn't understand what's going on, especially like in math where there's incremental development. So what we instead started to do is, and I know for me is, okay, I need to pump the brakes on suspending my particularly my disproportionate groups, my Black and brown boys. I need to figure out something. So what I did is I created a thing called Boys to Men. And Boys to Men was, my students that were not traditionally involved in football, sports and any type of extracurricular activity or anything that would give them a sense of belonging, as Dr. Moreno has talked about. And these kids, I'm telling you, there's a saying, George Bush said at an NAACP event, I know, I'll say it again. George Bush said this at an NAACP event. He said, no one rises to low expectations. And that's the thing is, if you provide high expectations, kind of the Pygmalion effect, if you provide high expectations for students, they will rise to that. And what I saw is these kids in Boys to Men, some of them were selling drugs. Some of them, and unfortunately, I've lost about 5 of them got murdered. Yeah. But some of them actually would wear suits and ties to school. Yeah. They started believing. When we had dignitaries come to the school, they would show them around. And then when we have, instead of suspending them, I would have graffiti cleanup on Saturday. Yeah. So I'll say, okay, I'm not going to suspend you so you can get a 3-day break. No, you're going to come on Saturday and you're going to help me clean the graffiti that your gang put on the wall. And so what that did is that gave them, again, a sense of ownership of their community. And they started thinking themselves of not just this kid that's continuing to get in trouble, but a kid that could be an equitable contributor to the progression of my community.
Yeah. So, Boys to Men, you're also a singer. Can you sing a little bit? Remember, we did.
Oh, you don't want that.
He did sing in a karaoke thing we did.
Yeah.
So now, go ahead.
I blame Wanye. No, I blame Wanye Morris I actually was a singer at St. Mary's.
I know.
In a quartet, and my career ended. Fox Kids Fair, I'll never forget. And Fox Kids Fair, 60,000 people. I was so bad singing Wanye Morris's part. People were like, I got a walking ovation. Like people were walking out. They were walking out. I was like, how was that bad?
So I'm going to direct this question to you, because was there anything when y'all were coming together to put this together that y'all disagreed on?
That we disagreed on?
Yeah.
I don't think that we disagreed on anything, actually. And it's interesting because our lived experience with restorative practices and the kids that we serve are so similar. Dr. Scott and I worked for several years together at the Disciplinary Alternative School. He was an assistant principal there. I was a teacher. I taught English in the classroom, and then I taught special education, and then I moved into testing coordination and restorative. I was the restorative practices coordinator there. And so our lived experience really just intertwined together. And I feel like we almost grew up in restorative practices at the same time. And so honestly, I don't know that we disagreed with anything. When we came together and we were like, we have to talk about the marginalized groups that are the recipients of this inequitable disciplinary process, we were right there. Yes, that's exactly what we have to do. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about it in a social justice and equity context, because really what we want to do is make sure that when we say every student succeeds, every student has the opportunity and the tools needed to succeed. Because what's being lost is with this push on academics, and a necessary push, don't get me wrong, with a push on academics and state testing, what's being lost is our social skills, our soft skills. And so we're not learning how to disagree appropriately. We're not learning how to have conversations where we can accept accountability and say, yeah, you know what, I messed up, man, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to be better, and here's how I'm going to do it. Nobody's teaching our kids that anymore, which is
well, we're not modeling that either.
Right.
We're not modeling that, right?
That's true.
True.
Yeah. Adults don't get it yet.
And they're growing up on social media now. And when you look at what they're seeing, what they're consuming on social media, I mean, my gosh, is it any wonder that this is how they're behaving, or this is how they're acting, or this is how they're trying to do conflict resolution?
Sure.
Because that's what they're seeing online.
Well, I think it too, you get now, and I won't go too far down a rabbit hole with this, but AI now is going to, and especially the educational world, is going to change everything.
Yes.
I mean, it is. I think not just the social media, but the AI part of it and how we interact with each other is going to get less and less, I think.
Less and less authentic.
Yeah.
James, if I may hint on, I wanted to talk about too, and one of the things, again, talking about myself and Dr. Moreno's mission, we also wanted to bridge the gap between academicians, right? The academy, and the theorists, and then the actual practitioners, people on the ground. And I think there's a huge divide that we've seen. Again, Dr. Moreno's been a national trainer. I've been a professor, and also I do trainings and consulting. Is we've seen that there's this big chasm, right? Like you have the academicians that are presenting all this research and they're producing all these papers, but no one's reading it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you have the practitioners who are using old data or old research to continue a practice with students that are our new generation students, right?
Yeah.
They're 21st generation, 21st century students, and we're using old practices for a new way of thinking. I know there's been studies of how students are their brains are being rewired because of like TikTok and Vine videos and the technology, no commercials, things like that. And so having them sit there for 50 minutes and listen to a lecture is painstaking, right? And so we need to, again, going back to the technological part, one of the things we want to do is make sure we have a medium and a way to make sure that we're training everyone, right? These are some of the best practices if you want to reach students on all levels and even today's students, and then model it. One of the things we did when we were at the DAEP at the alternative school is we actually got to model it with our teachers. So our administrators, and she was a part of the cabinet, the administrative cabinet, we got to actually do these, what they call restorative circles, where you have these conversations, you build rapport and relationship, and literally, we talk about very, and I was, again, I have a counseling tradition. I was a school counselor for 8 years, and I've done group counseling many times. I had this tradition of group counseling where we got to see each other in different contexts. Yeah. We got to see each other as family and a community and not just coworkers and colleagues.
Sure.
And I think that was the difference. When I saw Dr. Moreno and I got to hear a little bit of her story and I could empathize with her, then I understand why she responds to a certain student the way she did. And then I can support her in that response that's going to help her and the student. So I think that's the one thing that we really want to impress is this book is going to give an opportunity for you to learn best practices anecdotally and research-based, empirical, to support your students in the community.
So when writing this, who's the end user? I mean, who do you want reading this, I guess?
Yes, I want anybody in the education field who is currently a teacher, an administrator, a counselor, a behavioral interventionist, a district, a higher-up district person. I want them to be reading this and to know that there are things that you can do to help build community in schools that will positively impact your academics. And so we put in the work in the front, we're proactive. We put in the work in the front so we get the gains in the end. And so I want overwhelmed teachers and administrators to know that there is another way out there using restorative practices for your discipline that might be world changing, game changing for you.
And another thing, if I may interject, is one of the reasons why we wanted to do this interview.
You may interject, Your Honor.
No, but seriously, I know you're you have a wide, varied group of listeners, and I know you have policymakers, you have city council people, you have commissioners, you have organizational leaders, and so what I wanted them to understand is we need to reinvest back into our schools in this way. To Dr. Moreno's point, it's not just about the academics; it's that holistic development, right? The social emotional part. Let me give you a quick story. I had a student when I was at a high school, and I was a counselor, and I remember the math teacher kept sending them to the office every day. Well, this student was sleeping every day in class. It was in algebra, and so
I'd sleep through algebra too. Who doesn't sleep through algebra?
Yeah, right. But I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, if you're sending them every day, then you're not talking to the parent. You're not,
something else is going on.
Something else is going on. So finally, we found out that this kid, he's 15 years old, right? He's picking up his mom and taking his 5-year-old sibling sister with him to go pick up his mom from the strip club. Yeah, and then come home. And then, mind you, no license or probably no insurance. But, so putting it all on the line and then having to get up
so that's why it was
in a couple of hours. And so obviously CPS got involved and everything else. But then that goes to show, had we caught this in time, had we had a teacher that was more restorative in her approach, she wouldn't have sent them to the office necessarily. She would have asked more questions, and then we could have got a community around this young man to get him the help he needed.
Do you think that becomes difficult for the teacher, though?
Yes.
That puts a lot of pressure on a teacher to become a psychologist almost to a degree, because you have to start asking questions of the student, and you're supposed to be teaching. So I guess, how would you answer that question?
Well, I would just say from the administrator / school counselor perspective, again, you're the first line of offense. You're the first person that can assess a student. And so if you built that relationship, then you would know it's more than just, let me send him to the office and get rid of him. Basically, essentially, just get rid of him and he doesn't matter. And so, and again, I want to really impress this. That's why we really wanted to do this interview with your constituents, is because it's about a community of people. The teacher's not going to support this student alone. It is a community of us that are going to come together. And if I was that teacher and I'm going to Dr. Moreno and she's the administrator, I say, hey, Johnny, again, he slept. I think something's wrong. Can we check in with the parent's not answering? Can we do a home visit? Can we get the social worker involved? Can we get the counselor involved and figure out why is this kid coming in sleeping every day? I'm not going to mark him off. And in fact, I'm not going to do anything punitive. But I just need to know why is he doing that? So she's not going to go at it alone. Sorry, Dr. Moreno.
Yeah. So I want to be very clear when I say that teachers have so much on their plate right now.
Absolutely.
My gosh. And I also want to say that I don't think that restorative practices or community building is putting anything on their plate that they're not already doing. Okay. It's just a matter of embedding it into the things that the practices that they're doing already. But I think the big thing is, why did this student get so far along in this disciplinary process to the point where they have been excluded from their home campus, sent to a disciplinary campus, and now a teacher who's just met them, does not know them, is saying, this kid is coming in, he's sleeping, I can't get him to wake up, I'm sending him to the office for you to deal with because I also have to teach. For us to find out at that point that his family life is really hard and that he doesn't have the supports in place, mom doesn't have the supports, and other entities have to get involved. It took too long to get to that point, and we're somewhere in all of this, we're dropping the ball. And so I want to say it's a systems issue. It's not the responsibility of the teacher to be the forefront, that person that's like, something's wrong. What is it? Tell me your entire life story. It is very much about, we in education have to make sure that we are wrapping all of our students in that. And when we talk about tier 1 interventions, which are good for all students, that just means tier 1 interventions are interventions that are in place for all students, regardless of if they're receiving special education services, if they have disciplinary issues. It's for all students. And so in our tier 1 practices, for my educators out there, we should already be doing community building activities, because when people feel included, they are more likely to come and tell you when there's an issue in their home life. A lot of our kids are being told, we don't talk about family outside of family, right? We don't bring other people into this world of ours.
Yeah.
And so they have to feel comfortable enough to say, we need some help. I am experiencing this, and I know that you're here to help me and not to harm me also.
And can you talk about, when you say tier 1, what does that look like in the classroom particularly, and then what would be the breakdown of that?
So when I talk about community building activities as part of your tier 1 activities, I'm talking about your teachers greeting their kids at the door. These are very easy things to do.
Yeah.
Greeting the kids at the door,
right.
using their name. So research shows that actually 1 out of 5 kids is not being acknowledged throughout the school day at all. And so if you have a population of 200 people, somebody math that for me. Math is hard.
Algebra. I slept through algebra, so I don't know.
James slept through algebra.
Don't look at me.
You have these kids that nobody's acknowledging, speaking to, making eye contact with, and these are the kids that feel left out, unsupported, are more likely to engage in behavioral things.
Is it? But are these classrooms getting bigger? Could that be an issue?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, that's a systems issue.
Yeah.
Our classrooms are huge. Our classrooms
like
are
how many students are in a normal classroom? I mean, do you know? Is it like 50?
I have seen classrooms that have consolidated because the teacher has left, or they have been unable to fill the spot, that are that big, and they might have a teacher and a para in there. But I would say that classrooms, in my experience, classrooms have probably approximately 35 kids in them right now, and that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And as a matter of fact, the Texas Education Code says that at the disciplinary campus, you can't have more than 15 kids in one classroom.
You would think that would be an example of like what you should have. I mean, I know there's funding and all that, but yeah,
it is. It comes back to funding and how many teachers we have available and what classes they have to offer. It's an enormous thing.
Sure.
But yes, our classrooms are huge, and our teachers do have to teach and deal with behaviors and do the grading and make the parent contacts, and so it's a lot. It's a lot, and we're just saying, in the classroom, greet your kids at the door, use their name, give them a connection activity where they have an opportunity to talk to each other as kids and not as rival gang members, as, you stole my boyfriend, right? You know what I mean?
Or beef that happens online.
I don't know why she looked at you.
Or you're the person that's been harassing me online. Exactly. Or DMing me these inappropriate things on social media. Giving them those opportunities for connection throughout the class period. Teachers are already doing brain breaks when they're transitioning from one activity to another. So just giving those kids the opportunity to have real human conversations. And then allowing forgiveness and space when a kid messes up, because we're so quick to be like, get out of here, we're done, instead of being like, well, here's what I need to have you come back and feel better about this.
And think about what that says. What does that suggest to a student when you're kicking them out of the learning environment?
I don't want you either.
Yeah. Is there something, because I'm thinking from the educator's perspective, the teacher, is there also some kind of check-in with them mentally too? Because it's that there's got to be something there to help them get to the point to help others.
Does that make sense? I'm so glad you asked that. Yes. So in my own practice, what we did is we used restorative practices with the teachers too. And so we had consistent check-ins with them. We had an open door policy. We greeted them at the front. I was at the front every day. Hello, how are you? What's going on? Tell me what you need. How can I support you? What can I do to help you? And so having them be able to have some psychological safety in that space where they can come and say like, hey, I'm really struggling with this today. Or I need a break. I need 10 minutes, can you come into my classroom without fear of repercussions? Because I feel like we're so demanding of our teachers now that we forget that they are also human beings that are experiencing life outside
they need
of
restorative.
the campus.
They need to be restored as well.
Because I could see them walking out too, just like I need a break too. I need
They do, and sometimes they need a moment to reset. So offering them those opportunities and giving them that space and the space for grace when they need it, I think that helped instrumentally in rebuilding community and culture on the campus that I was at. and that trickles down to the kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what would be, I sent this to y'all, but so hopefully y'all can answer it because this was an interesting question.
Let me get my notes.
They both now have their tablets out and papers.
He sent us some questions. Oh no!
Well, I'm surprised y'all have not been looking. I'm going to tell our audience they have not. They have not been using their cheat sheets.
Yeah,
I wanted to.
Gosh,
I know. No, this is
what would be an uncomfortable question about this topic be? Like that somebody could ask.
Me, I'm going to take that first.
Okay.
And that is our restorative practices.
She's now looking at her paper.
I am looking at my totally reading off my notes.
Now reading her paper.
Yes, to the audience.
It's an uncomfortable question you're asking there, James.
I don't
That's the uncomfortable question.
I don't want to mess this up because it's important.
She has to read a statement.
That's why we don't have.
Yes.
We're not under court of law. We're not gonna. There's no video.
Includes but not limited to.
Dr. Scott wanted video this whole time, and I'm like, we're too low budget here to have video.
All responses by Dr. Scott and Dr. Moreno are not representative of Texas A&M Center.
Exactly. I'm just Jessica. I'm just Jessica talking here. Okay.
It's got interesting quick.
So the uncomfortable question is going to be, are restorative practices lowering standards? And that question reveals a deeper fear about authority and control. But equity does not mean lowering expectations. It means holding students accountable while affirming their dignity.
We don't have a clap track, but if I had one,
that's perfect.
That was very well read.
No disclaimer needed.
No disclaimer. If you had a critic out there that was looking at this book, where would they poke holes in this?
Schools are overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. Adding another framework, another program is unrealistic without funding and staffing. And you're right. That critique absolutely matters. Sustainable restorative work requires systemic investment and not just passion.
Yeah. What conversation would a reader, what would you want this to spark in them, in their mind, I guess?
Yeah, why? Yeah. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? First and more foundational framework of your why. Because in those days when it gets really tough and you feel faint, you're going to have to result back to your why in order to integrate restorative practices and not take the easy way out and say, get out of my classroom, or I'm writing you up, or or doing some kind of punitive exclusionary action. So I would say, addressing why did I decide to get an education, and then why this campus, why this community, why these students. Mm-hmm. And I think if you break it down to the, from macro to micro, I think that really works.
I think it's, I've been on boards and stuff, and it's interesting to hear sometimes the why is so important, because we lose the ability to go, why does this affect me? It's a kid. I don't have kids, but why does this affect me?
Well, let me push back a little bit, because there's a lot of I've noticed this too, and again, this is just pure observation and it's anecdotal. Nothing
hopefully not about me, but
no. Well, a lot of
I finally got her to laugh. Well, no, she almost spit her water out. So.
Right. Well, then think about it though. A lot of teachers don't have kids. Yeah. If you notice that, a lot of teachers don't have kids because you're investing in other people's kids all day long. Sure. But two, really quickly, and I was thinking about this as we've been conversing. Think about what teachers are taking home, and I'm talking about teachers in high need areas, high poverty, high need areas, turnover schools, whatever. Think about what they're seeing. They're seeing their students struggling. They're seeing students who may have had a sibling gunned down because he was a part of a gang, and or a parent is missing, or you have a parent conference and no parent shows up, or you have an ARD, like no parent shows up, or you have a parent conference and the grandma shows up because mom's locked up and dad's dead. I mean, these are some of the real stories. Sure. And so think of that particular teacher. We're human. We're all human. That teacher goes home and you're thinking about those students. Like you're thinking about, God, Jose.
Home with you.
Yeah. Like I wonder how Jose is. Like, I can't believe that, his grandma's having to raise all these kids and his mom's in jail and dad's dead. Like, you know what I mean? And so, and a lot of times teachers, I have a therapist, God bless her, because my issues got issues, you know what I mean? God bless my therapist. Jeez. I was like, man, but God bless my wife too, right?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, right? Hey, watch out. But don't let Heather hear this. No, seriously.
She won't listen.
But think about it though. Think about it. Like teachers don't go get the social emotional help they need. They don't get, the mental health nourishment that they need to interface with these students all the time in these communities and their own lives as well. And I've been a part of, I've had a teacher I knew that committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I had a teacher that wanted to commit and tried to commit suicide on campus.
Yeah.
And I had to work that case and get her the help she needed through EAP, but employee assistance program. So again, the book kind of delves into that. Like it delves into, okay, even as, educators, we have to take care of ourselves. We can't pour into anyone if we're empty.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess my question would be broader too. Like for a person like me in general in the public, I think, how does it affect me? Meaning, I think going back to your prison pipeline, I think that's the way you worded it. It's restoring people that could be going down a bad path, and therefore helping the whole community as a whole. Therefore, helping me, who doesn't have kids.
Right.
I do teach, but the higher education. But so I think that helps me long term when the community's better. I mean, I know that's very broad.
Well, it's dollars and cents, right? It's about how we allocate money, how do we invest into the next generation, and it's preventative, right? Are we going to put money, front load the money in the prevention, or are we going to front load the money in the actual cancer, right? In the treatment, right?
Sure.
And so I think that this is more preventative, right? You're preventing by building a community around, these students. And you're providing, again, longitudinally and long-term. And here's another thing, too. You're providing a long-term safety net, but here's another thing, too. And I tell my students, you're not going to be just the principal of that school. You're going to be the principal of the community. So when you oversee a school, people are parents are trusting you to take their child, right? Think of the magnitude of this, take their child and creating them. You spend more time, that child's going to spend more time at the school, 8 hours, 9 hours, than they're going to spend with their own parents at home.
Sure.
So they're imbuing in you the capacity to make sure that child becomes a upstanding citizen.
Is this specifically, I don't know how to ask this question properly, but this could be used nationwide, right? I mean, this is not just very specific to Texas or San Antonio,
right?
Yeah.
So a lot of this information was born out of national restorative practices, or using restorative practices on the national level. I've been given the opportunity to train teachers on systems integration and districts and program implementation in almost every state in the United States. Hawaii.
Even Hawaii, we just presented in Hawaii.
I'll go get data there.
No, we presented last year?
Last year.
Well, that's right. You told me about that. That's what this was about. Okay, I didn't know
this
that.
is the research.
I thought he was just going to Hawaii.
No,
he didn't say why. And then I saw these pictures of him partying in Hawaii. I don't think he was doing any research.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
But yes, this is these work with all kids, and I think that's the big takeaway is that we wrote our research specifically on, does this work with kids that are already experiencing exclusionary discipline consequences? They've already been removed from their home campus. Can restorative practices work with the kids that are most at risk? And when I say at risk, I mean dropping out, not graduating, that kind of stuff. Right. So if it can work with the kids that are most at risk, it will work with your kids on your traditional campus, your general population.
On the cusp.
Is there an aspect of mental health that we look at here? Like these students that are getting in trouble? Is there something about that?
I think that there's been an increase.
A part of it is, it can be a mental health situation because, again, it's trauma. It's trauma informed. It's trauma surrounded. Students are going through trauma. So if you have a student, I've had students who have gotten shot. If you have a student that's gotten shot, they're going to address you, or they're going to respond differently to certain situations. You have a student who is pregnant at 13. Yeah. She has a kid at 13, 14. I've had that. I've worked at a middle school. We had 8 pregnant girls in our middle school.
Wow.
All right. Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes, I know. They're going to see the world a little differently, and we're going to have to approach them and get them resources a little differently. So, so yes, there is a trauma-based response to the restorative practices. And what happens is, as you develop that restorative community around the child that surrounds the child, they'll be with the counselor, they'll be with the social worker, they'll be, if it's a drug and alcohol addiction, they'll be with someone who can help them through that addiction. All surrounded, the administrator will take a step back and say, hey, I'm not going to do anything punitive because I know that we're working with them restoratively. And I know Jose just needs a little bit more of, time with the counselor instead of time at home, suspension. So again, it's a holistic development. It's a holistic approach of addressing, again, not just the behaviors. The behaviors are emblematic of something else going on. And what is that other thing going on? A lot of times it is trauma, and it addresses that.
Yes, I completely agree. A lot of our districts are doing some really great things with wraparound services. So, for example, South San ISD has the Care Zone, and the Care Zone is community members and programs that are out there meant to assist families and students in the things that they're going through. So they have partnerships with like the clothing bank, the food bank. They have partnerships with the Center for Healthcare Services or Children's Center for Healthcare Services. They have partners that are specific to mental health and wellness, specific to addiction and addiction recovery. So we're doing a lot for our kids with wraparound services in those spaces. But yes, there's absolutely ties to that, absolutely. And it's not just our kids. It's everybody. These services should be available to everybody, and we're just really bringing them to the forefront for kids that are in need.
And one of the things I do as a professor is I try to bring in all these different elements or stakeholders to talk about these things. And then we do this thing called best of both worlds, right? Best of both worlds mean one part of the world is the theory, and then the other part is really the practice. What does that mean on the ground? And so our next best of both worlds actually is going to address a holistic approach on how we help all students, as Dr. Moreno was saying. Right, we have like Commissioner Calvert, because the Commissioner Courts, they donate millions to make sure that mental health, disrupting the pipeline of prison, mental health restorative is done. We have, Representative Elizabeth Campos and Jessica Nudston, who you know personally, and she's president of Clarity Child Guidance, and Andrea Vocabis, she's going to be there, and here's another. So we have some principals, Dr. Derek Brown. Young Men's Leadership. And one of the things I love about them is they have like karate classes and yoga, and they have other, what we call non-cognitive factors, right? Things that are not just academic. You have Priscilla Farrow, Young Women's Leadership, and they have a class where teachers are teaching them how to knit and do different things to where now the students are seeing their teachers as, not just that teacher teaching algebra, here goes algebra, but it's teaching them something, again, that's outside of the context of the regular academics and building relationship.
So we'll get to the final, where we can find this book and other things in just a second. But I wanted to ask one last question. How does this book change in 5 years? Where do you see this book if you have to rewrite some of it? Where do you think? This wasn't on. She's looking for this on her cheat sheet.
No. I know you didn't.
This one.
I know you didn't send this to us. I know you didn't. This is an authentic. Yes.
answer. I didn't even get the questions.
Yeah.
So
I did that on purpose.
Free flowing. I was like, where are these questions? You speaketh of.
I sent it to the right person.
I don't think that we have to change the book because
in 5 years.
Because the real premise of the book is we have to remember that we are humans, and humans have a natural urge to belong to something, to belong to the community. And so when we talk about restorative practices and community building activities, we are really just saying we have to train ourselves to be more inclusive. We have to train ourselves to not always remove students from the situation, even though that might sometimes seem easier in the immediate. We have to remember that they're children.
Yeah,
they're children, and they're still learning, and their brains are still developing, and so just creating that sense of belonging for them and showing them how to do it for others, I don't think that changes.
Yeah. And I like the fact that, we call this show Halfway Human. So I like the fact that y'all keep referring to human. It helps me because we're all humans at the end of the day. Yeah. So I think, anything, how do we, I guess, find this book? How do we? Is there ways? Anything else that y'all are going to be doing? You just said kind of areas that you may be promoting this, but just kind of give your plugs, I guess, at this point. I want to give y'all time to do that. For sure.
Yeah, sure. So we'll be we'll have a book launch at Texas A&M San Antonio coming soon. It's going to be possibly sometime in April, May. And then you know Cambridge Scholars. Cambridge Scholars is out of England, and those are our publishers. So you can find us on Cambridge Scholars.
Okay.
Also, all our handles. Our social.
Do I get a book? Do I get it?
Well,
I don't get to keep it.
Yeah,
that's my advanced copy.
We don't.
You'll get one.
She just handed me the book, and now she's taking it away from me.
Yeah.
What kind of promotion is this?
You can have it as soon as we get our.
And I want it signed by both of you.
Yeah.
Does this have pictures in it?
Yes. Yes, they're diagrams.
Diagrams. Yeah, that'll work.
We'll take a picture.
There we go.
Sorry, we interrupted you.
No.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I forgot what I was saying. No, I'm playing. No, but yeah, Cambridge Scholars and
Scholars.
Cambridge. Yeah, so we're gonna have a book launch,
and they can just search the name of the book on here.
They can search the name of the book.
What is the name of it again? Just so people
advocating
know.
for educational change. All right, reimagining, restorative.
He's having to read it.
Student.
Discipline.
You need to know the name of the book, okay? Before you start promoting.
It's a long. Yeah,
it is a long title.
It is.
It's advocating for educational change, reimagining student discipline through restorative practices by Jessica Moreno and Lawrence Scott.
And you can read quite a bit of it.
Right.
On the link, because you sent me the link. And so there's quite a bit that you can already, which is, I think, nice. You can get interested in it.
You can get a gist. And what we're hoping is that, you know, when you pick up the book, you can share it. It's going to be a great Christmas stocking stuffer. Right? It's buy one, give one, right? So buy one for yourself, give one to
it's very, how did y'all get this? How did you get this printed? That's very nice.
Yeah, again, we give a shout out to Cambridge Scholars. You have to, so people don't understand, you don't just write a book, but
I cannot imagine.
You have to submit a proposal.
Yeah.
And we were blessed again, and giving you context, Dr. Moreno's research was phenomenal. And so what I wanted to do is I said, let's put our research and practice together, because I had research as well. But, so let's put our research and practice together. And I was just blown away. I was on her dissertation committee. Yeah. So I was blown away by just, the amount of research and practice. Like it's practical. Like the stuff that she's talking about is super practical, and you can apply it anywhere. James, think about this. You can apply it even with your employees in the business sector. Yeah. It's not just, you can apply it in the military, you can apply it in the criminal justice system, you can apply it at schools. Sure. Anytime there's a dynamic where there's, a leader and followers, or a superior subordinate, whatever the case, you can apply this. And I think if we have that communal approach to a lot of these issues and give people, at the essence, a second chance, at the essence, making room to make a mistake and say, it's okay.
We all need
We're going to move forward together. And then at the essence, we're all human. I understand. I empathize. And let's move forward together.
Yeah. And I will say the most important part about this is I get a shout out in there.
I mean,
just look for that. That's the only reason to get the book.
James Chandler. I didn't want to tell you, there was another James Chandler. Oh, you mean that was you? Oh, that wasn't you, man. That was my cousin, man. I got a cousin named James Chandler.
Yeah, I was all excited there for a minute, too. The picture of me, and it looks like me, too.
It looks like you,
But you didn't know about the picture of me? No.
You know what? I'm all for surprises.
Yeah. Right.
It's a pop-up,
Right. The watermark.
Well, I really do appreciate both of y'all coming out here and spending a little time with me today. I know y'all are both very, very busy. And again, go out and get the book, and hopefully this changes, some people's, it'll change, even if it changes one person, as they say.
Yeah. You can make a difference for one student in one classroom. One day we're doing what we're set out to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
James.